Girl up, niggas, you let me down. But you can't blame that I wasn't always around.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Happy sunny Wednesday. It is gorgeous here. I had to go to Boston this week, and guess how cold it is? 35. It's freezing there. So it was really nice to come back home to some warm weather. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. We have a super fun presentation this morning. Who is here for the first time? See some newbies. Yay. Excellent. Well, my name is Erin Stanger. I'm our Director of Programs and Memberships and Events here at the Innovation Hub, and we host 1 Million Cups. It's a Kauffman Foundation program. We do this each week at 9 a.m., so it's obviously free and open to the public, and we always have great presentations for our local entrepreneurs here in Arkansas. So we're going to start today by kicking off a video from Kauffman Foundation that explains 1 Million Cups just really quick, and it's a great video. So we'll get started with that first. Here we go.
You see me this way.
A weekly educational program developed by the Kauffman Foundation.
Over the years, we've added more cities. Creates a great energy here to see what's happening across the country.
What I've learned from other entrepreneurs is very, very valuable. Sitting in a room with other people that have ideas too, it helps people to leave thinking, you know what, my idea is worth something. It's worth pursuing. It's worth going after it. Even if it looks like a challenge, I should still go out and try to do it.
All right, fantastic. So what I want to ask you to do this morning is go ahead and check in on the 1 Million Cups app. If you do not have that on your phone, download it and check in on that because it lets Kauffman know that you're here. It lets us know that you're here. It's a great way to keep in touch with the Kauffman Foundation as well. I want to go ahead and thank our sponsors that we have. Of course, they're up here on the board. We've got, of course, the Kauffman Foundation and the Innovation Hub and the ASB TDC. I will give you an extra cup of coffee this morning if anybody knows what is the ASB TDC? Except for Blake, because Blake represents them this morning. Who knows? Oh, I saw a hand up in the back. What do you think it means? Look at that. That was pretty, she did good. What do you think, Blake? That's pretty close. Yeah, pretty close. So technology, the T comes before the D, but great job. So you definitely can have an extra cup of coffee this morning. And so speaking of coffee, we've got Leva's Coffee's our coffee sponsor, and they are really good. You can sit wherever you like. Okay, well, that's okay. Well, welcome to 1 Million Cups. And if you're not at the right place, we'll get you where you need to go in just a minute. So this morning, we've got a great presentation from Slader Marshall. He's from Alaska. What part? Juneau. Has anyone ever been there? Just curious. I have. How about that? Okay. Well, we're glad that you're here. He's got a great story, a dumpling story that I'm going to let him tell. So come on up and let's get started. Sorry, I like how you can sit there.
Yeah, no problem. Which one's the clicker? Is it this one or that one? Okay, my name is Slader Marshall. Like she said, I'm from Juneau, Alaska. I was actually born in Little Rock, so that's how I kind of came back. But I moved when I was 3 months old, so I would say I am pretty much born and raised in Juneau, Alaska. I went to Harding University in Searcy, and I own a restaurant there called Slader's Alaskan Dumpling Company. We actually service also the Little Rock area with a food truck. We've been doing that since, I guess, 2015, and our restaurant's been open since 2014. Just a little bit about our food. There's not a lot to talk about. We only serve one thing. It's a dish called pelmeni or pierogies. They're Russian-style dumplings. Like I said, in Juneau, I call them Alaskan dumplings because they are very, very popular in Alaska, but they're actually a Russian dish. We keep it very simple. We serve chicken, beef, or potato and cheese dumplings. That is all we have. When people come asking for a salad or a side of chips, we don't have any of that. We just sell these dumplings in a little to-go container. We keep it simple. I don't like to say I'm a chef. I know how to make one thing, and I think I make it pretty well. But we boil these meat or potato filled pasta shell dumplings. They're about that size. We put curry powder, chopped cilantro, some melted butter, a sriracha and vinegar mixed sauce, and a slice of wheat bread and sour cream on the side, and that is what helps us keep the lights on. So it honestly was just a food that I grew up eating, and I thought I'd never seen it anywhere else. And I thought, there's not too many foods that you really, really crave that you don't just see all around you, like burgers or pizza or whatever. And I just thought, if nobody else is doing this, it kind of would give me an excuse to try something different and kind of give a shout out to where I'm from and kind of create a new community around a different type of food. So we got our restaurant started in 2014. I graduated in May of 2013, and I got our restaurant started in January of 2014. So right after I graduated college, I planted my roots back into Searcy and bought a building, scrapped the whole thing myself, built our bar, built a new roof and ceiling on it, did everything. When we walked in there was probably a foot big hole in the roof and just draining water all over the floor. And it was a real fixer upper for sure. But I did that and just kind of crafted the thing after what I would think you would see in Alaska, where I was from, a little rough around the edges type restaurant. And we got it off the ground, and we were more successful than I really thought we were going to be. I thought it was kind of going to be a side gig for me for a little bit, and I'd move on. My wife at the time was getting her master's degree in speech pathology at Arkansas State, so I had about a year to play with something, and that's really all I thought the shop was going to be. And lo and behold, it actually took off, and we added our food truck the following summer, and it was just kind of a deal where I thought, if this is going to work in a small town in Arkansas, it can work in a big town in Arkansas. So we got our food truck up and going. This is just a view of our shop. It's a really humble little place. It was a dry cleaners, and we actually had to rip out all the old 1960s dry cleaning equipment when we operated in there. And like I said, we just do the one thing, and it's really worked for us. As far as my experience starting a business, I found that kind of what you hear in school, or for me, I was just in school. So what they tell you in school and you kind of don't listen to a whole lot is really what you should listen to. Location was what really, really took us off the ground. I think we planted our roots right next to Harding, because that's where my kind of clientele I thought was going to come to. I thought that in Searcy in particular, there weren't a whole lot of places for younger people or college kids to kind of hang out and try something new. And I also thought we have a very different food. Maybe the family of four is not going to want to come and try some really weird food that they've never heard of, but maybe kids would, or college kids would. So we found our niche, and I really stuck to it. And I think it's really what has propelled us to be successful. And I think a lot of what can be the case for our business is the same for everyone, is you just really got to find a niche and stick to it. And I think that's what we have done. So that's our shop. This is our food truck after Main Street Food Truck Fest last year, where we were a little bit sore from serving so many people there. It's a pretty crazy event, but yeah, it's been a good experience for me as far as just being a business owner and an entrepreneur. It's not really what I set out to do when I was 6-8 years old. I didn't always want to own my own business, but I just thought, I'm young, and if I have an opportunity to be an entrepreneur and try something, and really, like I said, give my friends and my acquaintances a little taste into what it was like for me growing up in Alaska, which I really do think if you walk into our place, it would look like a typical place back home. I just thought that it was something that was a risk for sure, but something that I thought would be interesting. And maybe that more typical job would be sitting for me there down the road if I really wanted to do it. But the thought of doing something different, taking a risk, always really, really interested me. And I think it's been a great experience for me for sure. So I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time just on the presentation. I wanted to really give you an opportunity to ask me whatever you wanted. If I wasn't that informative about our business, I'd be more than happy to tell you anything that you were looking for as far as information. Thank you.
So what I want to make sure that we do this morning with our Q&A, we have kind of a new audio setup. So I'm going to make sure I repeat the question because, as you know, this is being broadcast across the nation. So everyone can hear us. So does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. So the question was, who in his life gave him the oomph to take the risk and be an entrepreneur right after college?
So I didn't have any entrepreneurs that I know of in my family, but I would say my parents were free thinkers. Like I said, I lived in Little Rock, and they had comfortable jobs here, and they took a risk by going to Alaska, and they thought they were only going to be there for a couple of years, and they're still there today. So I would say my parents just being kind of non-traditional free thinkers and really, really encouraging really was the driver for me. Of course, when I talked to people when I was in college, because I actually thought about doing this when I was in college currently, which would have been a terrible decision, I can tell you for sure. When I would tell people about my idea, a lot of people, I don't care if you're doing this or whatever it is, people will kind of encourage you to do it, but they'll also be thinking like, I don't really know if that's going to work out for you. So that's kind of what I got from my friends when they were like, you're going to start a what and not do what? Because I graduated with a finance degree, and I did have job opportunities right out of school. But I really did think this was an itch I'd wanted to scratch for a while. I did think about doing it in school, and just the thought of risk really didn't deter me. And I will say I got our business started for $9,000. So, I mean, it was not like I was looking at $1 million bill to get my restaurant off the ground. I did it very, very simple. We have one person working at a time. We are busy most of the day, but I wanted to keep my business with one person working, because I don't know if you go anywhere, I just count how many people are working at a time, because I can say this place is more busy than I am, but they also have way more overhead, or they have way more people working at a time. And I looked at what I was doing as far as the business, and even though it was a risk, it was one that I thought was a calculated risk, and one that I thought it would be educated for me to try and get this off the ground. But I guess the long story is I just wanted to do it and try and see if it would work.
More questions?
So, could you talk a little bit about how you did things in reverse of what we see for the government? You started at this restaurant,
Right. So his question was about why I went backwards from doing the restaurant to the food truck instead of the food truck to the restaurant, and what the challenges were. Yeah, for sure. I don't think many people go the other way. And a lot of that was just because when I got off the ground, a lot of people did tell me to do a food truck. When I started, it was 2013, 2014. And that's really when food trucks were booming. And a lot of it was because of where I was. I didn't think a food truck in Searcy, Arkansas would be near as profitable as a food truck in Austin. So that was part of it, but part of what I wanted to do was create an atmosphere, create a vibe around not just, I like our food, and I think our food is what gets people in the door, but I like to think that part of what gets people in the door is the people that work for me, the atmosphere that we've created around our restaurant. And so I thought that you couldn't do that with a food truck as much. And I thought if I could generate enough business based off of a restaurant, it could support a food truck later down the road. And that's kind of what it did. I didn't set out to do more than a restaurant. I really thought that was all I was going to do. And the food truck was kind of just a cheaper way to get into a second restaurant, honestly, and branch out to a different market very, very easily. And I was kind of tired of living in Searcy too. That was part of it. It's just I graduated and I was there for 7 or 8 years, and I still go back. But as far as a day-to-day, I didn't want to live in Searcy, and I really wanted to live in Little Rock. So it wasn't as much a calculated risk or a calculated plan as much as it just kind of happened when it did. And talking about the differences between a food truck and a restaurant, I will say a food truck is 10 times harder than a restaurant is, at least for us. The food truck, you have to worry about where you're getting your propane every day, your water. You have to, if you forget anything, you're kind of just stuck where you are, and you got to make do with what you have. There's something to be said with auto drafting your bills every month in your restaurant instead of going every day and not knowing how much propane you have left in the tank. We don't even have a gas gauge on our truck, so there were days that I didn't know how much gas we had in the truck. So, I mean, and then you have flat tires, you have things go wrong. I mean, we don't have a pull trailer. We have an actual truck, and I would say the pull trailers are nice, but that's not doing a food truck, right? You really have to have the big driving truck. Ours is a 1972 with all the bells and whistles truck. It was a news van. It was a Harley Davidson supplier truck. I knew this because I ripped off. If you see, it's gray, but when we bought it, it was white, and we used airplane stripper to take off about 8 loads of paint on it, and so I've seen all the different realizations of that food truck. So I would say if you want to do a food truck just because it's quote cheaper than a restaurant, go for it. But I think if you have the ability to do a restaurant, I would rather do that. Also, the heat in Arkansas, if I was doing a food truck in Denver or Seattle, it might be different. But when you're literally cooking in the thing yourself, you are cooking because it's about 95 degrees. We had a temperature gauge in there sometimes, and I remember it got up to 112 degrees in the truck. And you got to sit at these things for 4 hours, so you're kind of a little bit woozy by the end. But yeah, the comfortability of owning a restaurant is a little bit better than the food truck for me, at least. Anybody? So we do. I've kind of toyed with the idea. It's just me. I don't have a team of investors. I don't have people that are helping me along. So for me, I felt like we grew quickly to launch 2 different. I think of it as 2 different businesses in a 2-year span. It's a lot for one person to. I don't want to grow too quickly. So we have been approached by a few places in Little Rock to operate here, and that is definitely something that we are looking into right now. I'm also looking into Fayetteville at the same time, just to give us kind of a broader reach if we could have the truck here and a restaurant in Fayetteville. So that's kind of our 5-year plan, is to do something. We've had some talks about going to Nashville as well. So just kind of seeing, I think our idea needs to be anchored by a college town. I think it worked for us in the small college town that we're in Searcy. And I think we need to be anchored to something like a U of A or Lipscomb or Vanderbilt or something like that in Nashville. I think it's going to be always driven by younger crowds because, like I said, a family of 4 that has a fixed income and knows what their kids like aren't always going to try something that's a little bit spicy and different and they've never heard of. Some are, and we get supported by those people, but the majority of people are going to be younger. So I think.
Since you have went to college towns, work with college kids, are there any that you are trying to mentor that may be considered?
Yeah, so the question was, because we're in a college town, or am I trying to mentor, or do I mentor any future entrepreneurs? I was just talking before I got here, and I've given a few of these talks at Harding. So I would say I don't go up to Searcy as much as I probably should, because when I'm there, all I'm doing is talking to people about starting things or how this is going, and I don't get a lot of work done when I'm up there. So I think, at least for me, I'm sure you go to some colleges and they've got lots of people doing different things, but at least at Harding and Searcy, there's not a lot of people that are investing in entrepreneurship. They actually just got their entrepreneur program even after I left. I don't know if that had something to do with what we were doing, but kids are really, really interested. I think the thought of getting a job this day and age where you're kind of just part of a big database of resumes, and you can't really, a lot of the time, you can't go in and make yourself known. That kind of gets kids wanting to think about doing entrepreneurship more than they might have in the past. And I think it's always been a rock or a pillar of the United States to do that kind of thing. But I think I've been really surprised at how many people are really, really interested in their one idea that they think is going to revolutionize the the world, which is great. Anybody else? So the question is, what is the health of the food truck market, and do I see more room for making more money through the food truck or the restaurant? I would say honestly, the food truck has boomed. I think it is. It's not necessarily on its way down, but just talking candidly, I would think that it is. If I was sitting here today, I would not be planning on doing a food truck. I would be trying to do something more concrete. I think just like anything, it kind of hits a point of popularity, and then it goes down a little bit. I think when the food truck boomed, it was a new thing. It was kind of right after the recession, and you kind of had people that were doing food trucks because they couldn't afford to do restaurants. And now that the economy is kind of going up, I think that you see people that are more transitioning back into restaurants than food trucks. It's not like we don't make money or something with the food truck, and there are positives to doing the food truck, but I think it doesn't have a life for that much longer, like maybe 5 years. And I don't think you're going to be sitting here 10 years from now and still having a huge market for food trucks. And that's just, there'll be something else when they go away. And as far as making money, I would say that our shop is much more consistent as far as, I mean, we're open every day. We're open for longer hours. We know that we're in a stationary place. People can go to us every day. But the food truck, we would make more in a day, like per hour, than we would in the shop for sure. And I don't know if that's just because we're in Little Rock, or if we're kind of a destination type place where if you're going in a restaurant, you kind of have to like draw people off the street, and they're like, oh, that looks good, I'll go there. And with the food truck, most of the time you're going to that event, or you have people around you that are drawing a lot of different people in. So I always said that the shop is what keeps the lights on, and the food truck was what was our big money maker that was in addition to that. But we needed both, to me, to stay alive. So I think they both provide different benefits and different negatives. Who helped me with my branding? It was actually just all Harding kids. It was people that I always said that I'd get the shop off the ground, and then there's a lot of creative kids at UALR or U of A, and a lot of the time you just don't have an opportunity to really do anything when you're in college. You're working on these class projects, and you don't really get a lot of real world experience. So I thought, I'll just do my vision, and then the kids will really make it into what they want it to be. And so I used all of my friends or people that I went to school with, and they did all of our logos. We have like a pretty large merchandise kind of department, I guess, if you want to call it that. And they did all of that as far as our different designs. We try and do a different design maybe every 3 or 4 months, just to give them a different thing to look at. But yeah, it was all, I didn't spend any money on any advertising or creative director type stuff. It was all just kids that wanted an opportunity. So how much do we spend on advertising? I literally have not spent a dime. Not to get off the ground, not to promote anything. I mean, I say I haven't spent a dime. I mean, I might boost a post on Facebook for $5 every 3 or 4 months. But I mean, in a traditional sense, we are completely generated and sustained by just word of mouth. And I think it works, like I was saying, better in a college town. I mean, if you're in Little Rock, you might be competing against a lot of different people and have to get your name out there more. But in a college town, in Searcy, where there's not a lot to do, it's kind of, and I think not just using that crutch, but when you sell something that's really different, I think it sells itself. I think people hear Slader's Alaskan Dumpling Company, and they want to know what that is. And maybe if I was Bill's Burger Shop, I would have to spend a lot more on advertising, I think. And I knew that from the onset. I thought, this is going to be a weird enough thing that people will at least try it once. And having a business where a lot of people will try your food once, that's enough to get your business off the ground. I mean, there will be some people that don't like it, but I think we are really, really helped by the fact that we have a different food that is weird. And a lot of the time you leave the place talking about whether you liked it or didn't like it, but you talk about what you tried at our shop. Anybody else?
So you guys are agreeing financing?
Yep. I would like to say I did, but I think, at least to be an entrepreneur, I think you either have it or you don't. I think it's kind of like management. I don't know why there needs to be a degree for managing people. I think you either know how to do it or you don't. And financing helped me in a sense of knowing about things, but as far as applying, I feel like I knew a lot of what I was going to do before the degree, and the degree did help. But when people say, I'll be like, I don't really think I use my degree that much. They'll be like, oh, you started a business. That's totally finance. But I think for the most part, my on-the-job training and just kind of learning as I go. I've learned a lot more than I did with my degree. I think accounting. I mean, accounting's a great field to go into, and I think even to some degree, I think engineering would be a good degree just to know how different things counteract and kind of make up each other. But I think and maybe marketing, but marketing is one of those things that I think you kind of either know or you don't know as well. So I think accounting would probably be the best, just to kind of know what makes up your business and kind of know at all times what the health of your business is. Because a lot of it, if I was going to talk about a stress about owning a business, it's just knowing how many moving parts are going at a time. And with an accounting degree, I feel like you know what those moving parts are and how they coincide with each other much more. Uh-huh. It's just the acronym of Slader's Alaskan Dumpling Company, but it was weird enough to where I was like, oh, people will remember that. Yep. So the question was, why are we more active on Instagram, or why are we more active on some social media than others? If you look at some of the food trucks that started in Little Rock, whether it was like Waffle Wagon or Southern Gourmasian or some of the original ones, if you look at their Twitter feeds, they have loads of followers. I mean, they might have a few thousand, but I think this day and age, I use the social media for our business the way I use my social media for my personal life. I use Instagram a lot. Facebook is more just information. It's kind of like a Yelp page for us. It's just like, we're here. You want to know some information about us? Here it is. Twitter, we try to do. We just do our Twitter for our food truck. So if you look at our Twitter, we haven't tweeted since last November because that was the last event that we did. But I thought Twitter would provide more than it actually did. And I think a lot of it is because people just use Twitter for like news now. And that's kind of why we use Instagram, is we can just post one picture. We don't have to roll out a huge campaign or something like that. And a lot of our clientele use Instagram more so than Twitter or Facebook. I think each social media provides a different avenue, and the avenue that we have found is the most efficient is Instagram, because we don't have to do as much work. We just have to put one picture and one thing maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And with Twitter, the only reason why we use Twitter is just to say, this is where we're at. And if people wanted to follow, they did. And honestly, it was just based off of where our followers were. I mean, I think our Twitter might have a few hundred followers, and our Instagram and Facebook has a few thousand. So that was just, we kind of went where people wanted to receive their information. No, not a big Twitter. Twitter was huge when I was in college, and I really thought it would have provided a bigger avenue. But I think really it has shifted more into a news source than anything, and so it just doesn't. It never really took off with us. So I don't know.
I have kids that are your age.
Yep. 26, I think. 26.
Mine have all gone football and basically, other than my youngest is 20 in college.
Uh-huh.
I have 4 people who's 29. They all only use Instagram.
Yeah.
And you're right. You follow something like the news.
Yeah.
Follow my team. Like your sports team.
Yeah. I think it's
That's it.
yeah.
All Instagram.
Yeah. And for us, it's easy for me to kind of get in the head of my clientele, because my clientele is my age. So if we were supported by the family of 4, I would cater to them. But I mean, you just kind of cater to what your clientele is. And for us, I just think the way that I do, and I really just scroll through Twitter and I don't read anything that isn't really of substance. I don't think, I mean, looking at my own Twitter, I probably don't tweet unless the Razorbacks are playing and I'm angry.
All right, we always end with one last question with 1 million cups is, what is the one thing that we can do to help you the most?
Okay. I would just say generally to support food trucks or support local businesses. I know it's like cliche, but the amount of work that goes into supporting a local business or a food truck is 10 times. And I really wouldn't have said this unless I did my own business and saw how hard it is to make something work. I am one of the few places that actually makes money. I mean, I would say most local businesses, especially restaurants, have a really, really hard time making money, because you go to Chili's and you get, or wherever, and you get more food or cheaper food. And then you go to a small business restaurant and you complain about the price or how long it might take to get your food or something. And a lot of the time it's just because we don't have the avenues to distribute our food all around the country or to make loads and loads of food at one time. And it's a lot harder. So I think it's very general and cliche, but really supporting local business really, really does matter. And especially with food trucks to keep them going around, you just have to go to these events and try new things, I think. And it's been a very, very rewarding process. If it ended today for me, it's been one of the biggest joys in my life, just being able to meet new people and to really take a risk and see where it goes. So I appreciate having me.
Thanks so much. That was so interesting. All right. So thanks, everybody, for coming today. We look forward to seeing you next Wednesday right back here at 9 a.m. All right. And I have a silly question to ask y'all officially that 1 million cups is over. How many of you have tried something new at a food truck? I'm just curious. I know I have. I try different things when I go to these food truck festivals and I do stuff. So I can't wait to try I have to say I haven't tried your dumplings, but I definitely want to. So yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.